Welcome to Growth with Portia, a weekly conversation for your personal and professional growth. Here is your host, Portia Booker.
Hey listeners, welcome to Growth with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. So, question for you, did you bring your curious mind today? If so, I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's dive in. I'll say this again. Grief is a process, but it's not permanent. Let me say that one more time. Grief is a process, but it's not permanent. And through this grief journey that I've been on since July of this year, one thing I had to learn was to let go of the set standard placed on how we process our grief. When I let go, I found myself in a healthier state of mind with the ability to not only just feel all my feelings, right, but also refrain from becoming crippled. So, question for my listeners today. What will it take for you to let go of the weight of the world and lift yourself into a space of intention? Let that sink in. So today I am joined by an individual on a mission to help others find happiness and peace amidst this busy, chaotic ecosystem we call life. She's an international bestseller of the book, Let That Shit Go. Find peace of mind and happiness in your everyday. So welcome, founder of Pure Minds, Miss Nina Purewal. How you doing today, Nina?
I'm doing great. Just hearing all the wisdom you've thrown at us already. I'm feeling really pumped and ready to tackle life. I'm excited to be here.
You know, you and me both, Nina. I always love to start off my conversations with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Just being alive and doing what I love. Every day I'm thankful that I do what I love, and just to be here is a blessing.
And expound on that more, Nina. I feel you there about being alive, because I used to actually be that person who was a walking corpse. I mean, when I was really heavily plagued by depression, anxiety, I've been diagnosed 3 different times. I like to tell people 3rd time's a charm: anxiety, depression, and bipolar suck. But through that journey of me having all of those labels placed on me, I recall a period in my life where I was literally the person looking from the window inside of my own life and wondering, why am I living life this way? Why does everything appear to be black and white? But little did I know, because of the expectation that I placed on my path of life, I have to make it here. I have to do this. And when all of that crumpled down and blew up in my face, that was when my whole world shattered. But truthfully, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, because now I'm able to retell the tale and help other people to overcome that hurdle and really encourage people to feel their feelings. So long monologue gone all the way wrong. But anyway, Nina, continue.
I love it. There's a saying actually that goes, the harder you fall, the higher you bounce. And I truly believe in that. I truly believe that sometimes it's our greatest tragedies, traumas, hardships. They're not easy, but sometimes it's those moments when we can slowly heal and come out of them. We might not forever escape the sadness moments, but when we can come out of them and, as you said, almost look at ourselves as a witness and say, oh my gosh, I have this life. What am I doing with it? What's my purpose here? What message am I meant to deliver? Why am I on this earth? Then we can start to be more authentic, step into that, own that, and how powerful that can be. Because I truly believe everybody on this earth is here for a reason. And when we step into that magic is when, all the stars start to align. And it's incredible how the universe supports you as well through that.
Oh, you ain't kidding about that. When you learn to let go, no pun intended, of those expectations, those ideologies, and that prescription narrative that's spoon-fed to us from when we're little kids, whether it's through religion, whether it's through the way that our culture also shapes our thought pattern. once we learn to let go of some of those things, then we're able to finally, again, step into our true calling and divine purpose. And I think that's why grief is such a crucial part of our human experience. Because if we always ran every marathon and won, how would we truly be able to appreciate those losses along with the gains?
Exactly. How would we be able to appreciate the wins, right? And I've heard this path being called the warrior's path. You know, when you step into your power, it's so healing. And you're right, it is letting go of all of these trajectories we had and expectations we had of ourselves put on us by our parents or our social group or media or social media. And suddenly it's like, but what do I want? You know, in 2010, I left the corporate world. I sold my house in an economic crisis and I went and I lived in an ashram for a year. And everyone thought it was crazy, absolutely crazy to leave it all on the table, you know, given the financial state of the world. But I felt it was my calling. And now looking back, I'm so grateful that I did that instead of working one more year in corporate, you know, because it enabled me to do what I do now. And so when we really step into that, it's empowering, it's healing, it's loving yourself, you know, in a very, very authentic way. Sure, self-love can be self-care Sundays and at the spa and this, but really loving yourself is honoring yourself, you know, head, heart, soul, all of it. You want all of it to just be aligned. And when that happens, it's incredible how you can impact yourself and others.
Oh, 100%. It literally is like you taking clay and molding yourself into the person who you want to be. Like when we watch cartoons as kids or action movies, we're like, oh, we want to be just like this person. We want to be just like that person. You're literally molding yourself into that person when you really invest in yourself, whether it's through books or, you know, kind of like you, Nina, where you went on this whole journey, leaving the comfortable life alone to step into the arena of uncomfortability. So I definitely applaud that because that's similar to my story. And Nina, so I got to ask this. What did it take for you to let go of those toxic beliefs and ideologies that held you captive for longer than you probably wanted to be in corporate?
That's a great question. And I feel like it's been a journey and a mix of things. Cause at the time when I went into corporate, you know, I got my business degree and it was just the thing to do. And I was in marketing and sales and I liked my job. I was passionate and I liked what I did, but I didn't like love it, you know? So it was kind of this process of like first kind of unhooking and being like, okay, well, if this doesn't feel right, then what does? And I've gone through a lot of losses. You talk about grief. When I was 16, I unexpectedly lost my dad and my brother, my younger brother. And that was the first kind of shock to my system where I started to question, what's my life all about? What's my purpose here? And, you know, very long-winded story. I was also supposed to be gone that day too, but, you know, the universe didn't want that for me. So I survived. And you know, I just built this great appreciation for life. And I started getting into the study of ancient wisdom and mindfulness and meditation. And then kind of parallel path to corporate life. And then around, 10 years ago, it hit me that I like doing this and I can do it. I'm good at it, but it's not my calling. It's not what my heart wants me to do. And then I lost my mom in 2014. She was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's. And that was my second massive reality check of like, okay, you've lost all these family members. Your brother was 10, your dad was 44, your mom was 61. Life is not guaranteed. Anything can happen tomorrow. What do you really want to do? And when I come back from the ashram, it was 2011. No one was talking about mindfulness and meditation. But when I lost my mom, people were starting to talk about it. And I thought, this is what I want to do. Because I don't know how much longer I have here. I want to spend it, spreading this word and giving other people hope through adversity. And so I think exactly what you said in the beginning, our grief is what catapults us sometimes to embody who we're really meant to be, because we have all these sudden thoughts and realizations about life, right? We see people come and then just in an instant they're gone, and it makes you reflect on your own life.
Because we realize too, Nina, that life is fragile, especially when we lose those key role models in our life. I mean, for you, your dad and your brother simultaneously at such a young age. And then obviously your mom too, the one who brought you into this world. And I can definitely relate to you there. The two key people who played a pivotal and crucial role in my upbringing is my great grandmother and my mom. Both of them. Literally, I moved back home in 2018 after living, quote unquote, the dream that I wanted that turned into a nightmare. I was a TV producer for a big network and lived out of state, all the great things, right? And then I ended up moving back home after I had my mental breakdown. And then a month after I moved back home, my great grandmother transitioned. Then 4 years later, my mom does the same thing. So we're stuck in that boat of what direction do I go now? But that's where the grief process, to me, we have to learn to shift our mindset around it instead of becoming a captive or a prisoner of those thoughts, and becoming more mindful and not having a mind that is full. And so, Nina, I got to ask this too. You brought up grief, and of course, I have too. How did you learn to process the grief that stemmed from you letting go?
I think just allowing myself to feel and to process was exactly it. Sometimes there's toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing and, oh, you're all good. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. And I kind of lived that for a good decade. And then I realized I was suppressing and repressing behind the scenes. I was showing up as the happiest girl on the block, but deep down I had so much trauma. I just last September did a 20-week trauma healing program. And this is like 25 years after my dad and brother died. So I think giving yourself the ability to process, and like you said, not judging your grief or having any expectations around it, and just being with it and saying, you talked about you had a rough day yesterday. And of course it could be 5 years later and you could have a rough day, and just sitting with that all and being a witness to it by saying, I'm going to cry my eyes out today, and I'm going to miss my mom, and this sucks, and I'm so hurt, and I can't believe that happened, and owning it all. But then also recognizing, that you got to honor the emotion, but also there's nothing I can do about this. My mom's gone. I can't do anything to bring her back. So how would she want me to live? She would want me to live life to the fullest and achieve, whatever I put my heart into. So I think with me, it was allowing myself to not go through the 5 stages of grief and, I got to be this now. And now I'm angry, and now I'm in denial. Like every day is different. Right. So I think honoring that, and every journey is different. Every loss is different. Every processing, is different for different people. So just making sure that you're aware of the ups and downs, and just moving through it, being really compassionate and gentle with yourself through it all.
Nina, I love what you brought up just now about awareness. That's one of my favorite words, literally. And in our society, Nina, it appears that grief is looked at as, okay, you're allowed to take one day off, but tomorrow you have to be back to the regular 9 to 5 grind. And so, Nina, for our listeners who are tuning in, what tips or advice can you leave with them today, whether they're in the state of grief from obviously the physical loss of someone, or if it's maybe the transition in their life, such as a job or a relationship? All those can bring different levels of grief. And so, Nina, what tips can you leave with our listeners today about giving themselves permission to grieve and realize that it comes in waves, and to not try to fight it or force themselves into all the stages?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's really important to acknowledge what you just said around grief doesn't always have to be the loss of someone. It can be the loss of the life you thought you had. It can be letting go of a career, letting go of a person. I mean, there's so many ways we experience grief. And I think to just be present with it. And it's not like this day I'm grieving and this day I'm okay. It's moment to moment. You might wake up bawling your eyes out and then end up having the best day by noon, right? So it's just when things come up, I had a lot of trauma. And so for me, I now have tips and tools on when the trauma comes up, what to do about it. Because one of my mentors told me, once you get into the fifth or sixth thought about something, that's when you can really spiral down the rabbit hole. And there's moments where we want to spiral, right? We want to spend the day crying and curling up in a ball and being like, this freaking sucks. And that's okay. You got to feel it to heal it, Jay-Z says. But in the same token, you also want to make sure the toxic thoughts or the heavily, trauma-induced thoughts, you have tools. And so I think therapy or just listening to podcasts or YouTube talks on grief to build your toolkit on what to do when certain things come up, because it's so personal for everyone, right? So, when I see a trigger, like knives trigger me. I won't go into why, but they trigger me. And so, my trauma therapist said, so I can't use them. I can't, birthday parties, when they come out to cut the cake, I feel sick to my stomach. So I said, I need to do something about this. It's been 25 years. And she said, well, when you see one, okay, you might be triggered, feel that for 10 seconds and then think, wow, look at how far you've come from, a point in time where that really triggered you. Look at what you've built for yourself. Look at how you've grown and healed and impacted, others and written a book and all these amazing things since that intensity, right? And so building your toolkit and coming up with solutions for you, having a support network, having people who understand you, I think is huge. I have a number of friends who have lost both their parents or, the motherless mothers, like that whole, community. So building a sense of community is important. But I really think knowing awareness, back to what you said, it's the first chapter of our book, being aware of when it happens. So you're not caught in it. You can be kind of a witness to it and say, oh my gosh, it's coming up. Okay, I feel it. I'm missing her. I'm going to just move through it, and then giving yourself the tools to kind of work through it, whether that's journaling, breathing, meditating. For me, it's meditating, talking to someone. There's a whole slew of things that you got to find what works for you and then move through it accordingly.
Oh, Nina, you hit on a lot of the key tools that I've acquired in my toolbox, especially on those really, really tough days where I'm like, wow, I really, really miss her. Like, for some reason, as we both know, grief continues to come in different waves, different swings. And most of the time you can tell when it's going to really hit you hard, especially if you're somebody like me who tends to bury your emotions because of other people's comfort. And I have to remind myself, can't do it.
No, I learned that the hard way. I was a chronic people pleaser in my 20s and early 30s. And that's exactly what I learned in trauma therapy. And that came from childhood too. Sometimes it's about recognizing where it came from and then you can unlock it. And so I realized that, as children, we were very scared of my dad and we would walk eggshells around him all the time. And I realized that I learned at a young age to sit in my own discomfort for his comfort. And that just carried on with me. Like, oh my gosh, I feel conflicted about the situation at work or at home or with this family member, but I'm going to stay quiet because I don't want to piss someone off. I don't want to start something, and then there are the 2, 3 a.m. thoughts come, right? Like, why the F didn't I speak up? I could have said that. Then the whole dialogue starts up, right? So making sure, so now I am stepping into, again, it's taken me decades, stepping into my own comfort and, okay, if I have to make other people uncomfortable for my own peace, it's 1,000% worth it. And I because for years and years, putting others emotionally over me was a huge disservice to, and now that I've started doing that, I have so much space to help others or to help myself or to heal myself or to write a book or to do a workshop. I have so much more space for it all because I'm not holding on to all this animosity or anger because I didn't speak up, right? There's the quote by Maggie Kahn, speak your truth, even if it makes your voice shake. And I'm learning to let go of my own discomforts and step in, even if it makes other people uncomfortable.
Well, and then you figure it really creates an emotional blockage in your system. It literally, you're carrying around baggage that you don't have to. If you just treat it as though your foot is on fire, you're going to say, hey, give me a fire extinguisher. So we have to, again, go back to awareness and also using our own voice. And so, Nina, for our listeners who are tuning in, if they want to connect with you and learn more about you, is there a website or social media handle you can share with us today?
Yes, you can reach me at my website is ninapurewal.com. And my Instagram handle is nina.pure.minds. And I am also on LinkedIn as Nina Purewal. So those are kind of the three ways you can get in touch with me. And if you have any questions about mindfulness, meditation, letting go, grief, trauma, reach out, don't hesitate, and I will get back to you.
Excellent. And definitely we all got work to do in that area, Nina, because as I mentioned in the beginning, grief is a process. And when we're learning to let go of the expectation of what our childhood should have been like, or even our dream career job should have been, it's definitely something that takes time. It takes feeling your feelings, crying, of course. And that's for a whole nother conversation about giving yourself permission to cry. Because that was something that my therapist told me. She said, Portia, you've got to feel your feelings. I mean, I call my therapist no nonsense because she really is. But that I'm glad that she is that way with me. Because I tell people, don't give it to me at all if it's not blunt. That's simple. But we'll keep moving. So, Nina, I got to ask this. I mean, you obviously wear so many hats. I mean, you're author, entrepreneur, mindfulness coach. You also help people with podcasts, especially our little people. How do you, Nina, find that balance between your passion for helping people and also maintaining your own mental well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I'm sure you find this too. Sometimes when you help people, you're actually helping yourself. So I feel like now that I've gotten away from corporate and doing what I love, and I do these workshops or these one-on-ones, I sometimes walk away with learnings for myself, but I also take self-care incredibly seriously after being a workaholic and ignoring that part of myself. I make sure that I have a therapist or that I'm listening to podcasts that are uplifting my mind. And in the evenings, I'm unplugging and I'm watching Netflix, or I'm really aware of my mental health. And it's like, if I need to take a day, I'm an entrepreneur. So I sometimes on a random Wednesday, I'll book the day off just to hang out with a girlfriend and walk around and, eat our way through the city and just have fun for the day. Just little mental health days, I think, are so important. Tapping into when you're at the point of near burnout or exhaustion, you want to actually catch it before that. But knowing yourself and knowing when you need a timeout and giving yourself permission to have that, but doing daily things. I talk about authenticity a lot, and a lot of that is doing your passion. Some people are, it's great, you're in corporate, you're settled, that's your path, but what do you love to do? Do you love to play the piano, or do you love to strum a guitar, or go to that yoga class, or do that art class? Okay, are you doing it? Or are you only doing that like once a year, when you're sitting around a campfire? Are you doing that weekly? Are you making yourself and your passions a priority? Because we are so high strung, we are so high stress, anxiety has gone up, depression's gone up, suicide rates have gone up, I know, in Canada. And our sympathetic nervous system is always, we're just always going. We live in a capitalistic society where it's like, the grind and hustle and, are we activating our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down, which, gives us access to our creative side, all these things. So I think tuning, again, it all goes back to awareness. This is what mindfulness is. That's why it's so magical, because you just need to be aware of what's going on in there and then do something about it. So I think for me, I love what I do, so I don't really feel like I work, to be honest, but it's also being very active with my self-care, whether that's therapy or, doing things that, set my soul on fire outside of work.
Well, like they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And even Nina, believe it or not, even when I worked in corporate, and I've worked in many corporate jobs. I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in telecommunications, I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in like every field you can think of. Every single day that I worked, I never worked in my mind. I'm like, I don't work. And I still don't.
You need to coach people on that. That's incredible that you must have a very positive mindset, because that's incredible to even be in, certain jobs where we might not love through and through, but also feel that passion. That's phenomenal.
And even on the toughest days that I have, where I'm like, oh, I got to edit this show for this big person, I'm nervous that, it's not going to be to their standard. But I'm like, you know what? They didn't pick me because I was an amateur. They picked me because of the value that I bring, and they know that I'll over deliver. And so I had that experience last week. I realized, like, holy crap, Portia, you are living the dream that you wanted. You prayed for this a year ago, and now you're actually sitting in it and doing it. Like, what kind of freedom, or like, it feels so good that you could literally slap everybody across the face and buy them a drink afterwards. Like,
that's why you're constantly grooving. That's why we're always grooving with Portia, because it's that mindset. And it's so true. We have a choice. And, one chapter of the book is perspective. And I talk about this with my corporate clients. It's like, you don't have to change anything in your life. Perspective is just the lens through which you're viewing life. So what glasses are you putting on in the morning when you get up? It's your choice, and I get some things are not in our control. A lot of things are not in our control. But, when I lost my dad and my brother, my favorite quote was, life is 10% what you make it and 90% how you take it. Because you can't control the shit that comes at you, but you at minimum can control how you're reacting to it. So the fact that you're waking up and I'm living the dream, all of that, and our thoughts are so incredibly powerful. I'm doing a lot of research on mindfulness and the brain and science, and wow, are our thoughts ever, they give us the ability to manifest, to intention set. There's a verse we studied in when we were in the ashram that said, your mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Ooh.
And it's like, lean in, man, lean into that best friend, and the process of my workshops are like, you go from the mind controlling you to you controlling your mind. And I think that is so empowering when you can start to make that shift.
Oh, 100%. Again, it goes back to awareness. You got to be aware of it. And you also have to take action once you're aware of it. You can't just say, oh, I noticed that I'm starting to feel the grief wave, but I'm just going to sit through it. No, you got to take some kind of action, whether you cry it out, you journal it, whatever it is you do, you got to take some form of action, because education plus application equals success. Nina, oh my goodness, I knew this conversation was worth the wait. We are going to be wrapping up here soon, Nina, and I thank you again for coming on and sharing so much wisdom and light with our listeners today. I always love to say this question for last, Nina. What words of inspiration can you leave with our listeners today, Nina, whether it's someone who was once in your shoes, working in corporate, but they knew that their soul and their passion was not there and they sought more? What words of inspiration, Nina, can you leave with our listeners today?
Wow, that's a big one. I would say that anything is possible. Don't give up. I know these are so cliche, but if you're sitting in corporate and you think, I can't leave this, I've got rent, I've got a mortgage, I've got bills, I gotta, okay, I see you. Make a plan. Start your side hustle. Start networking. I never in a million years, I started my business in 2017. And I had 2 corporate clients and nobody was talking about mindfulness and meditation in the workplace. And now I've got over 50. And, it's like one day at a time. Just don't give up, keep at it. And also circling back to what we talked about originally is don't worry about the future too much. Plan for the future. I'm an entrepreneur. I got to think ahead. Don't be attached to that plan. I've stopped being too prescriptive about, okay, in the next 2 years, I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to achieve this. Then I want to write another book. I'm like, okay, universe, whatever I'm meant to do. And I think that's a really powerful, call out to the universe. And, Oprah talks about this too, but just, it's like, use me as a vessel to exude exactly what I'm supposed to do. And naturally you will find that. So I think in terms of inspiration, don't give up, honor yourself, and where there's a will, there's a way. So just keep at it.
Yes, never give up. I always tell people the day that I transition, I want people to say at my balloon release, Portia never gave up. No matter how many thorns were put in her feet to stop her from achieving her goals and dreams, she kept going, even with the scars bleeding from everywhere. But that's for a whole nother day. Well, everybody, that was Nina Purewal that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia on this Motivation Monday. Thanks for listening and have a great and awesome week, everybody.